तत्परम्पर्यय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ योगमहर्षि Dr.Swami Gitananda Giri Guru Maharaj ki Jai. Namaste, Swagatam, Vanakkam, Buongiorno, Buonasera, Buonanotte. It's always wonderful to come up here onto the roof of ICYER and connect with all of you on these Saturday mornings. These Saturday mornings that have been the continuation of so much we have offered over the past year, starting with the lockdown and now going into what may be soon another lockdown in this part of the world. In the midst of turmoil lies the answer to peace. In the midst of our struggle lies the solution to where we need to be. The turmoil of the world, the turmoil which is external, internal, interpersonal, is an opportunity for us to transform ourselves, upgrade ourselves to a better version. Version 2K21 of you should be the best version of you till date. But then remember, next year should be even better version of yourself. We should constantly be striving to become what we are to be. Now you can say, then why should we make effort? We're just going to be. Well, if you don't make the effort, you're never going to get off your butt. It's as simple as that. And most people want to do good, but are so busy being on the couch, eating potato chips and becoming couch potatoes, that they never change anything. Be the change you want to see, said the great Mahatma Gandhi. So if you are going to be that version of you that is the best version, what is very important is that you have to keep on doing what you should do, what you need to do every moment, and mindfully with the power of choice. It's not going to happen automatically, okay? The autopilot mode is very, very slow. And that's why the yogis said, why should I waste 10,000 incarnations to become a version of myself that if I make mindful effort and do the tapasya in this lifetime, I could do it. Why waste 10,000 times coming back again and again? Imagine the wastage of energy in coming back again and again. To be born, you have to learn how to crawl, you have to learn how to toilet train yourself, how to eat, how to, crawl and then walk, and oh my God, all this stuff that you have to learn and get ready for this lifetime, and then you are ready to die because it's taken you so long. The yogi said, why should we keep on going back again and again and again and again, this Sara Adija Vyadi, of being born again and again, because we haven't known ourselves. What is the antidote for it? What is the vaccine for it? So that you don't have to keep on coming back again and again and again and again. Well, the vaccine is Atma Jnana. And that is why the Guru, who enables us to attain Atma Jnana, Atma Jnana Pradhanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We are offering our salutations to the Guru, who enables us to grow into that state of self-realization. Abraham Maslow stopped at self-actualization. Self-realization, Atma Jnana. And the moment Atma Jnana is there, all the avidya falls away. And if avidya falls away, all the other kleshas fall away, because you know who you are. When you become someone who is content, Nitya Tripta is a term given by the Bhagavad Gita. Nitya is eternally. Tripta is contentment. Can you be content and yet not stagnate? That is the challenge. To have contentment but not stagnate. Many people equate contentment with stagnation or stagnation with contentment. Contentment, tripta, is a dynamic continuum where you are content with what is there now, but you are constantly working towards what needs to manifest next. And that is where your swadharma, the responsibility for which you are born, the purpose for which you are born, your self-responsibility, your self-purpose is the key. Living every moment what you need to live as you, not somebody else, not as what somebody else expects you to be. Please don't get trapped into that box, trying to be something that somebody else wants you to be. No, it is your life. You have to live it. You have to be yourself. It doesn't mean you can be rude to other people. It doesn't mean you can be violent to other people. It doesn't mean you say, I don't care about anybody. No, you care enough about them. But because you care about them, you hear them, you don't have to listen to them. Let them go on with what they think you should do. I have so many people who think, Dr. Ananda, you should have gone off and done this and that and this and that, and you should be doing this and that. And okay, thank you very much for your wise counsel. Take it in, chew the cud. See whether there's anything worthwhile in what they say, because often people do say things that are worthwhile. So don't think you are the know-it-all. Because the more you know, the more you realize, the less you know. As you grow, you realize that what is known is in the fist. What is not known, what is unknown is the whole universe. Tamil Mudati Abbai. Katrathu kaimannalavu, kalladadu ulagalavu. Katrathu kaimannalavu, kalladadu ulagalavu. Kalangarai vilakkamai வாழ்ந்த தமிழ் மூதாட்டி. தமிழ் மூதாட்டி, தமிழ் மூதாட்டி, தமிழ் மூதாட்டி அவ்வை வாழ்கவே. What a great woman, a woman of substance. ICYER. She is in the court, and all these great scholars are there who think too much of them. They say that there is something called sirk. Sirk is a word for this very specific egoism that the learned people have. It is that jnana vasana. Swamiji calls it jnana or vidya vasana. I know it all. I am so wise. Do you know what I know? I am the one who knows it the most. Reminds me of, those monks who are trying to meditate in silence. So they all decided, we are going to sit in silence and meditate. And after some time, one of the monks said, how much longer is this going to go? He broke silence. The next monk says, hey you know what? You just broke the vow of silence. Gone. And the third guy, I am the only one here maintaining silence. We all get trapped in that. We all think we are wise. We all think we know it all. The ego is such a cunning villain. The ego is such a cunning villain, it makes you think you know it all. When we grow, we start to realize we actually know nothing. A lesson that Ammaji is teaching me often now. Because when you admit that maybe you don't know it all. You can start to learn. As long as you think you know it all. Recently I had someone write to me who wanted to join the Yoga Sutra Ashtangam that is starting next week. And this guy was so busy telling me all his qualifications and how he had studied this and knew this and that. Finally I wrote to him, I said, I don't think, seriously, and it's true, I don't think you could get anything out of my teachings, so thank you for the wonderful work you are doing and the wonderful person you are, but I think you would not gain anything from my teachings, so thank you very much. You don't have to be harsh to people, you don't have to be violent to people. Himsa is not needed. But then you set your own boundaries, okay? That is, you have the power to do that. We are coming to the end of module 2 in Yoga Step by Step, and lesson 26 is there tomorrow, after which everybody gets 2 weeks of rest. No escape for me, because immediately we dive into the Yoga Sutra Ashtangam. And in this lesson 26, Swamiji introduces the concept of tension and the practice of yoga. And I wanted to share some of Swamiji's thoughts today. Swamiji says, the end result of every Hatha Yoga and Pranayama session should be a special kind of relaxation from which you can return to your work-a-day world. Work-a-day world, refreshed and prepared to face any of life's eventualities. I'm going to read that again because you all may have been just looking at me and not hearing what I said. These are wise words from Swamiji. The end result of every Hatha Yoga and Pranayama session should be a special kind of relaxation from which you can return to your work-a-day world, refreshed and prepared to face any of life's eventualities. This special relax and rebound, Swamiji uses the term relax and rebound, after the stress of doing the postures, is proof that you are doing your asanas, kriyas and mudras and the pranayama correctly. So when you do the practice, there's going to be some tension. When you do the practice, there's going to be some stress. But then at the end of it, you should go into that beautiful state of relaxation that gives you that relax and rebound at the end of the session. Swamiji warns us, if you feel fatigued after a yoga session, then something is wrong. And you should check the order in which you are doing your practices, your regular diet, for faults, or it may be your inability to give up the stress thinking. So, Swamiji is suggesting that at the end of the practice, you should not feel fatigued. You should feel relaxed, refreshed, rejuvenated, enough to face the stress of the world in which you are living. Because if you are feeling fatigued after a yoga session, something is wrong. What do you need to do? Don't cry about it, but go out and check what you are doing. Check the order in which you are doing your practices. Check your diet. Or see whether you are on that autopilot mode, which is stress thinking mode. Keep on feeding the stress with your thinking. Whatever the case, you will learn how to control tension and stress as you proceed through the lessons immediately ahead. Spanda Nishpanda. One of the very important concepts in Swamiji's teachings is Spanda Nishpanda. Spanda refers to tension. Nishpanda, the opposite, relaxation. Tension and relaxation, Spanda Nishpanda, is part of the cosmic order of the universe. The universe is based on an order which is Spanda Nishpanda. Activity, deactivation. Activation, deactivation. Activity, rest. And you know what? Even the human body is made for that. We have something called the sleep-wake cycle. It is also called the basal rest-activity cycle. There should be rest, there should be activity. That is part of your circadian rhythm. 24-hour rhythm should be based on sleep, activity, sleepfulness, wakefulness, and the rest and activity cycles. These are cycles that are part of it. Just as day and night are part of the universal scheme. Just as hot and cold are part of the universal scheme. We have, the human system, we have the pineal gland. Some people call it the pineal, depending on which part of the world you are pronouncing it from. The pineal or the pineal gland. This gland in your head, this gland in your head is a very important one because it secretes something called melatonin. Melatonin is very, very important for your sleep-wake cycle, the circadian sleep-wake cycle to be normal. So when the sun goes down and there is darkness, melatonin gets secreted, and when the sun comes up and there is light, melatonin secretion stops. So melatonin is secreted in the dark. Okay? And so it was ideally meant that what we need to do in our lives, yes, Goilin, our lives are based on that Spanda Nishpanda. The universe is based on Spanda. We are the microcosm of the macrocosm. We are not different than the universe. As above, so below. As below, so above. I was yesterday reminded of that beautiful saying, "Thy will be done, as in the heavens on earth." This is a very beautiful cyclic pattern. This is why the Indian concept of time is not linear, it is cyclical. And that is why our modern yoga scholars, these yogi idiots, get it all so wrong, because they are looking at linear time scales. Trying to understand Indian history through linear time scales is basically, a small kid trying to measure the circumference of earth using, one of those foot rules. That's basically what they are trying to do. You have to expand your consciousness into the cyclic aspects of time to understand Indian history. That is why we have Manvantaras. Manvantaras are the cyclic patterns of the yugas. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. One Manvantara. Then again Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. So when we say that Rama Avatara was in Treta Yuga, was it this Treta Yuga or an earlier Treta Yuga? We don't know. When we talk of Krishna as being in Dwapara Yuga, is it this Dwapara Yuga or another Dwapara Yuga before it? We don't know. Each of the Manvantaras, and yes, Soundarajan, the seasonal variations are part of that. Each of the Manvantaras has its own set of Sapta Rishis, the great 7 Rishis. And so when you look for it, you will see that in each Manvantara there were a different set of Rishis. Some are common. So coming back, Spanda Nishpanda, tension relaxation, is part of the cosmic order, and it is represented in the change of seasons, the ebb and flow of the tides of the ocean, the cyclic biorhythms of the human being, and especially noted in those activities such as the respiration. So you have a rate of respiration, you have a rate of the heart rate, you have the blood pressure cycles that are there. And this is why this cyclic pattern needs to be understood. We are a small clock ticking within a big clock. The wheels of the clock, wheels within wheels within wheels, each affecting each other. We saw it in Yantra, where one wheel, the minor cycle, affects the next. The one 9-year cycle affects another 9-year cycle. There is a cyclical pattern going on. Some stress or tension is natural to keep the normal muscle tone and the walls of the blood vessels regulated for their proper physiological function. So here Swamiji uses the word tonus. And I had a conversation with my yoga research guru, my mentor Madan Mohan sir, last night after reading this lesson. Because I want to dwell deeper into what my dear Michael calls metaphysiology. And for that you need to understand both physiology and the higher metaphysics. And I was trying to understand it, and Madan Mohan sir corrected me on this. He said, it is the smooth muscles. Now in your muscles you have smooth muscles which are involuntary, and then skeletal muscles which are voluntary. So you have the voluntary muscles and the involuntary muscles. So the word tonus, muscle tonus, is actually more correctly applied for smooth muscle. For example, the smooth muscles of your bladder, or the smooth muscles that are part of your digestive system, or the smooth muscles that are part of your vasculature, your blood vessels. So, but the skeletal muscle is more what we call muscle tone, because it keeps on changing. That is why we have, when we talk of exercises, we talk of isotonic and isometric. Iso means the same, like isomers being the same formulas in chemistry. Iso means the same, so tonic. Isotonic means a muscle activity where the tone remains the same, but the length of the muscle changes. So isotonic exercises are, for example, most of your running, jogging, where you lift and lower and all that is isotonic. But isometric means the meter, the length of the muscle remains the same. The length of the muscle remains the same, but the tone changes. For example, what is happening? You are trying to lift the table, but you are not really lifting it. It's too heavy. But your muscles, what is happening? The length is the same of the muscle, but the tone in the muscle changes. And this is where most Hatha Yoga practices are actually isometric. The length of the muscle doesn't change, but the tone changes. So coming back, Swamiji talks about the necessity for a bare minimal level of tone and tonus to be there in muscle. So he is saying there's also the natural tension of approaching a new Hatha Yoga asana with which one is not familiar, and the stress that comes in trying to understand the instructions and duplicate the position. So you have gone into a yoga class, and first of all, the instructor is doing it so well, that itself, has already got you cranked up. Then on top of that, this asana is totally new to you, and you're like, oh my God, what to do? And then they are giving all the instructions, do this first and do that. Don't do the first thing last and don't do the last thing first. And you're like, oh my God. So, you're building up stress even as you are going into this attempt of the practice. Swamiji has given a very beautiful approach here in this lesson. So he says, one is that there is a natural tension, a natural tone or tonus that needs to be there to keep everything going. Someone who's dead, they cannot keep the chin up. This happens. And the jaw will not be open. That's why when people die, if you look at them, whereas to keep your chin up, keep your mouth closed, you have to be alive. I think that's a good lesson that just came through me. To keep your chin up and keep your mouth closed, you have to be alive. And it's not possible for a dead person because the chin goes down and the mouth opens up. There's the loss of the tone. Now then sets in what is called rigor mortis. That is the contraction that occurs after death. And the more you have been, more violent your death has been, the more soon and the greater the rigor mortis. But I'm not coming into that here. I'm just talking about the tone. And so there is the stress, the tone that is there, inherent, the basal tone or tonus. Then on top of that, you have the stress of trying to understand the instructor, this new practice. And then he says, then there is a natural yoga tension related to perfection of a posture. Okay? So it requires a combination of tension of the body and relaxation of the mind to produce the perfect form of a yogasana. And I'm going to repeat this again because this is pure wisdom. Swamiji says it requires a combination of tension of the body and relaxation of the mind. Tension of the body and relaxation of the mind to produce the perfect form of a yogasana. And this can be correlated with the Yoga Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali. Because when Maharishi Patanjali is talking of asana, he gives us a very beautiful instruction. He says, when you do the asana, there will be an effort, prayatna. So the effort is going to be there. What is this effort? It is the effort, the tension that Swamiji is talking about. All that Swamiji is talking about is the prayatna component of going into an asana and trying to make that asana become what it should look like. A bhujangasana should look like a bhujangasana, not like something else. And what happens these days is people who cannot do asanas, they do something else and create a new name for it. I'll never forget when I heard some of the names of asanas. Weirdo stuff. So, the tension part is the prayatna. Now you have to let go of it. See, the first part is you are trying to do the asana. So prayatna is very strong. Then you have to let go of it. There is the shaitilya. Shaitilya means to let go or relax. It's again the do your best, leave the rest. The do your best, leave the rest component is coming very strongly here. Do your best is the prayatna. Leave the rest is shaitilya. Do your best is the spanda. Leave the rest is the nishpanda. So prayatna and shaitilya. Spanda and nishpanda. First, spanda has to come. Because if you haven't done anything, what are you going to let go? It is like all the people used to ask my father, Swamiji, give me sannyas, I want to renounce everything. And my father was great, that's wonderful. He said, do you have a house? No. Do you have a job? No. Do you have a family? No. Do you have an education? No. Do you have money? No. Now if you don't have anything, what are you going to renounce? He said, first get out there and earn something. First get out there and do something, earn something, and then you have the right to renounce it. If you have not earned anything, then what the hell are you renouncing? It is just another escapism. Sannyas is not an escapism, it is a great responsibility. You have done your best and you are letting go. So, prayatna shaitilya. Maharishi Patanjali is saying the same thing. There will be the tension initially. There has to be the tension. It is natural. Swamiji talks about it. He says, there will be a natural yoga tension related to the perfection of the pose. It is natural. It is not unnatural. But what you have to do is you have to understand it so that you can go with it. And then after you have gone into it, there is that letting go. That is where the doing starts to move into the being. You cannot be without doing. The doing has to come first. And that is where you need an Acharya to guide you on the doing so that then you can be. Then you don't need the Acharya. Once you're in the state of being, you don't need any guide. You are already there. But the doing part you need. And if someone knows what they're doing, it is good because then they can help you do what you need to do. Yes, Soundarajan, the same. Karmanyeva adhikaraste. You have the your role is totally in what you are doing, not in what is coming out of it. It is so important, so important. So coming back here, there will be that. And that is why the tension of the body that then has to be let go. And Maharishi Patanjali is so wise, the greatest psychologist, Superman Pat. What does he say? Ananta samapattibhyam. Contemplate the infinite. Why do you contemplate the infinite? Because when you contemplate the infinite, you pale into insignificance. When you contemplate infinity, next to infinity, everything is zero, mathematically. Any number when compared to infinity is zero. Even infinity minus 1. Even infinity minus 1 is 0 next to infinity. So when you compare your effort, when you compare your state of evolution, when you compare your knowledge, your wisdom with the infinite, suddenly you realize, I am indeed nothing. You suddenly have a beautiful egodectomy occurring. So here the process is, as Swamiji said, combination of tension of the body and relaxation of the mind. What a beautiful combination he is suggesting. Now Swamiji goes into a description here. After practicing the Hatha, Asana and Pranayama, you will note a tendency to perspire or sweat. Sweating may be there. He says this has little to do with the actual energy being aroused or used. It is actually due to increased metabolism of the body. So what is happening is there is a enhanced metabolism because of the Hatha Yoga that we are doing. He said it is a good sign and don't get worried about it. So when you are doing the practices, perspiration may be there, sweat may be there. It is not something bad. It is showing you that the metabolic activity has got aroused. You have enhanced the metabolic activity. So what he says is, after the practice, use the palms of your open hands to massage this yoga sweat. The sweat that is there, the yoga sweat. As Swamiji calls it. Massage the yoga sweat. Use the palms of your open hands to massage this yoga sweat into the skin, because it will help the skin. It will help the skin and the nerve terminals that are on the outside of the body. So the sensory nerves that are there on your skin and the skin itself, you are helping by rubbing the sweat into it. Don't rub it off, rub it in. It's a nice one. Don't rub it off, rub it in. And yes, Gurulin, we have to breathe out first to breathe in. We have to create a space for something to occur. As long as the ego is there, God cannot come in. As my father so beautifully used to sing that song. In the chamber of my heart, I keep a shrine for thee. In the chamber of my heart, I keep a shrine for thee. Will thou come, Lord? Will thou come? Will thou come just for me? In the chamber of my heart, I keep a shrine for thee. Will thou come, Lord? Will thou come? Will thou come just for me? Devotees may come, O my Lord. Devotees may go, O my Lord. Still I will be thine, O Lord. Keeping a space for the divine to come in. We are so filled with our bloody ego that there is no space for the divine. The divine says, I'm knocking the door, but there's just a dull thud of the ego there. Dull thud of the ego. When space is there, there'll be a nice hollow sound. There'll be a nice hollow sound. If a pot has space in it, we call it a ghatam. A ghatam, and you can play it musically. When there's space. When something is inside, you will not get that resonance. We use this in percussion in medical clinical examination to check whether there is air in your lungs. If air is there in your lungs, you should get a nice, that hollow air sound will be there. But if it's filled with fluid, you get a dull thud. When we are filled with ego, the divine is doing percussion to see if there's space. The divine is checking and there's only a dull thud. And the divine says, what do I do with this person? Breathe out. Create space. And then as you breathe in, the higher self can come in. Inspirare. Bring the spirit in as you breathe in. Inspiration. Bring the spirit in. Expiration, let the spirit out. What is being let out? The small I, the Jivatma. What is being brought in? the Paramatma. So Swamiji then talks about this aspect, and then he says there is a third stage of natural yoga tension where there is a feeling of incredible energy within, and the body may begin to convulsively jerk, swing or sway, or even jump if in a sitting position. What happens is there's so much of energy that there's this sudden jerkiness that comes in. This tremor may give a body thrill, but for some there may be a sense of uncontrolled state, and it brings worry or fear. So when you are going into the asana and this is happening, there's this tremor that is happening. It is actually Angame Jayatva that is talked about by Maharishi Patanjali as one of the Vikshepa Sahabhuvaha, tremors that occur as you are practicing. And what Swamiji says is, accept what is happening as being natural. See, acceptance is a very important tool to deal with most situations. Not passive, but dynamic acceptance. So accept that what is happening is natural. And then what you can do, he says, well, if too much of this is happening, he says, do some Mukha Bhastrika, where you breathe in, take in a deep breath, and then you blast out, you perform the Kaki Mudra, puckering up the mouth, and you blast out multiple breaths from that one inhalation. So one inhalation, pucker up, and he says, and go into Dharmika Asana. And he says, what we need to do is that, he says, do 3 rounds of this. 3 cleansing breath, and this should subside then. He says, this type of thing will subside. And yes, the tremor, it happens in sleep. This is also part of the muscle twitching that occurs. It is a similar type thing, because most probably that happens in what we call the REM sleep. Non-REM, it doesn't happen. Non-REM is where you have the lowest muscle tone. But in REM is where you're having dreams, rapid eye movement, sleep. There is a dreams and these twitches do happen. Now, when I was reading this, I realized, Swamiji has actually tapped into the teachings that are found in the concept of Hatha Yoga and the stages of one's sadhana. It is said that there are different stages. These are called avastha. Avastha is a stage, and it is said that when you go through Hatha Yoga, you find this concept brought out in the Hatha Yoga literature, that there is the first stage which is called Arambha Avastha. Arambha means the starting. Arambha Avastha. And this is the stage where you are starting off and there's a lot of expectation and there's a lot of, okay, this is going to be great, and you have just done a single yoga class and yoga is great. There's a bit of that going on. Arambha, it is the starting stage. The next is Arambha Avastha, then comes the Gata Avastha. Now Gata Avastha is where you are beaten up like a pot is beaten. Gata means a pot. And Gavanda Samhita, one of the Hatha Yoga scriptures, tells us the concept of Gatastha Yoga. You are baking the pot. And my dear Jnana Sundari, many years ago, she called it baking the yogi. Through the yoga sadhana, you are baking the yogi to make the yogi the best they can be. You bake the pot so that the pot is capable of holding that which it is to hold, the divinity. So, Gatastha is where, it's like you have put something in the pot and you have mixed it around. You have given a good shake. And this actually happens. People take up the yoga practice and then this happens. And this is what Swamiji is talking about, the perspiration in the beginning stage and then going into these type of convulsions and all that, which then continues into what is the third stage, which is called Parichaya Avastha. Parichaya means where you are tested. And this is again where there may be a lot of this type of body turmoil coming up, which may put you off because you are being tested. Are you fit for your higher aspiration? You started it, Arambha Avastha. You went through that shaking the pot and baking the pot, Gata Avastha. You are now being tested. Are you fit for it? And you have baked the pot. You have Arambha Avastha is making the pot. Gata Avastha baking the pot. Parichaya Avastha, you are testing the pot. Okay, testing it. Is it capable? You put some water and see. Is it baked? Because a half-baked pot, like most of us in our knowledge, half-baked pots will not hold anything in them. It just will be destroyed. So Parichaya Avastha is very important because it is said in this stage is where actually the energies start to really move. The energies start to move, and this is where all the energies, especially of what is called the Kundalini, these are energies you start to actually experience a lot here because it's high octane sadhana, Parichaya Avastha. And then if you have gone through these, you come into Nishpati Avastha, where you actually start to get established into the practice that you are doing. So you have been doing the practice. Arambha Avastha, you started to do it. Gata Avastha, you have been shaken about. Parichaya Avastha, you have had all this energy manifestation and testing, and then you are now into that practice. You are moved from doing to being. Nishpati Avastha, where actually you are in the practice. That is actually where the actual yoga starts. Because yoga is all about being, not the doing. So the doing part was preparatory. The first three stages of sadhana, Arambha Avastha, Gata Avastha and Parichaya Avastha, are preparatory stages for the Nishpati Avastha, where you are actually now in that state of being or what that practice is. Every aspect of yoga goes through this. And yes, Nalini ji, Gata Avastha is going on for sure in yoga step by step. Lot of shake-ups. This is where the shake-up occurs. It's so important. Arambha Avastha, there's not much shake-up. It's in the Gata Avastha the shake-up comes. We start to question ourselves. It's a very important. And the practice gets established, Meena, the practice gets established in Nishpati Avastha. And Kim, how do you know where you are? Well, basically Swadhyaya. Ask yourself, what is the experience I am having when I'm doing the practice? What is brought up when I'm doing the practice? If you're just going into the practice and, this feels good, you're still in the Arambha Avastha. You're starting to question yourself and starting to feel a bit of shaken up. It may not be pleasant. It's usually the Gata Avastha. And then you are really pushing yourself and you start to feel these energy movements and you're like, wow, what's happening? The Parichaya Avastha. And then there's that beautiful sense of calmness that occurs, that Sukham. Sthira Sukham. Stability and ease is occurring. You are in Nishpati Avastha. Nishpati Avastha is the pinnacle of sadhana. And each practice we go through that. So it's a very beautiful way that Swamiji has explained this. He has explained this without using those terms, and this is what I love about it. Because he was just connected to the source. He is just connected to the source. And Gurulin, yes, meditation is the state of being, for sure. But not the way it is approached in modern times where the people are busy doing meditation. So people are still caught up, most people doing meditation are caught up still in Arambha Avastha. Oh, my meditation is so sweet. Most probably it's Arambha Avastha. Because when you start to actually really go into that deep aspect of meditation and the Gatastha and the Gata Avastha and all comes, we really start to question ourselves, and then it's not so pleasant. When you have to take a hard look at yourself, it's usually not too pleasant, I'll tell you that much. So Swamiji is then saying, expect this natural tension in the beginning of any practice. He says, it's going to be there. And he is telling us it's going to be there. When you attempt the pratyahara, the sensory withdrawal, it's going to be there. When you attempt the dharana, it's going to be there. And when you really go into dhyana, it's going to be there. And to achieve a higher state, something has to be given up in a lower state. It's a very beautiful statement here. He is making a very strong point. He says, in order to achieve a higher state, something has to be given up in a lower state. You have to give up the lower for the higher. It's like you're climbing a ladder. You have to give up your foot from being on the lower step if you want to go to the higher step. If your foot is still on the lower step, you cannot go higher. You have to let go of that lower step, which was important as part of your growth. It is part of your growth, so it was important to be there. But you have to let go of where you were to go where you need to be. And very true, Kim, it may not be pleasant, but it is good. Again, the Kathopanishad. Yama Dharmaraja telling Nachiketa, one path is the Shreya Marga, the path of the goodness, nobility. And what is a yogi? A noble human being. So the Shreya Marga is the path on which we manifest the nobility, Homo nobilis, the noble human being. And then there is the Preya Marga, which is the pleasant path. And you pray on everything. P-R-E-Y, the English word praying on something for pleasure, has come from that, Preya Marga. And he says, make the choice. Everybody wants the Preya Marga. How many want the Shreya Marga? This is what Amma has taught me. Amma has been the best teacher. As I told her yesterday, you are my mother, you are my guru, you are my God. As the mantra tells us, Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. And what she has taught is so true. She said, do not mistake the pleasant for the good. Do not mistake the pleasant for the good. Such an important teaching. And again, such an important teaching is follow your dharma. Follow what you are to be. Not what somebody else wants you to be, as I said earlier. So Swamiji says, to achieve a higher state, something has to be given up in a lower state. And so tension may be the result, or tension itself may indicate that one is giving up the stress. Giving up the stress may also be a tension. Imagine that. Yeah? And if the tension is physical, then counteraction can relieve it. Usually a short rest between the posture or some pranayama is enough to relieve the buildup of unnatural tension. If you feel unnatural tension, take a short rest. This whole idea that you have to do 360 asanas in 1 hour is stupid. Yogi idiots. You don't have to do that. There can be a rest in between. Especially be kind to yourself. Understand yourself. That's what it's all about. Not Instagram craze. If you are in a sitting or heel sitting position, drop the head down into the dharmic asana. You can go into the dharmic asana, the devotional posture. Or you can stretch out in shavasana. Or do some rhythmic style breath, the Savitri pranayama. So what Swamiji is saying is that be aware when the tension comes so that you can counteract it mindfully. Counteracting the tension mindfully is the Nishpanda component. Spanda may not be a choice. Nishpanda is a choice. Stress may not be a choice. Relaxation is a choice. That is why the stress response doesn't have much of choice in it. But the relaxation response is completely based on choice. Try doing Nishpanda, a tensionless activity. And that is why Spanda is where there is the tension, and Nishpanda is where we let go. What a beautiful teaching Swamiji has given us in this lesson. A lesson which is the final lesson of module 2 of Yoga Step by Step that we are completing tomorrow. And beautiful journey with all of you. And as we are taking a short 2-week break, I thought let's have another round of the Yoga Sutra Ashtangam. So from 8th of April, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It starts on a Thursday, Guruvar, the day of the Guru. Tuesdays and Thursdays in the evening from 5 to 7, 2 hours of exploring the Yoga Sutras. So many of you have already signed up for it. And keeping the pandemic and the after effects of it, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual and financial, in mind, I have made it a donation Dakshina based program. You can pay what you want, when you want. If you're not able to pay, that's also fine with me, because money will never hold a sincere student back from teachings that come through me. So we are going to have a nice time with the Yoga Sutra Ashtanga, because each time I explore these teachings of Maharishi Patanjali, he is the time traveler. So as I grow, those teachings grow with me. And it's just amazing. I'm like, wow, how much is hidden in all of this? How much is there? How much is obscure? And that is why one has to open up to this to realize the hidden gems of yoga. We have got so stuck with the external form of yoga that we have forgotten what is the soul of yoga, the spirit of yoga. As long as I can, I will do my best. And when all of you are with me, you support me in giving my best. And if you are supported by what I give, and you are giving back, this, each of us supporting each other, we create a beautiful cycle of supportiveness. And this is why caring is sharing. It's not just a mantra, it is the reality. Because the more we care, the more we share, the more we support each other, the stronger the team becomes. And the stronger this team is, well, the happier the universe is. And it's singing, Anandame Paramanandame, Anandame Paramanandame. அனைவருமே ஒன்று கூடினாலே, அனைவருமே ஒன்று கூடினாலே ஆனந்தமே. When we all come together, the universe is singing, ஆனந்தமே பரமானந்தமே, அனைவருமே ஒன்று கூடினாலே, அனைவருமே ஒன்று கூடினாலே ஆனந்தமே பரமானந்தமே. Such great joy, bliss manifests. Such a beautiful, beautiful manifestation of joy occurs when we support each other. And yes, thank you, Rania, for that comment. The energy, when we start to understand the grounding, I've talked about this in the past, the yoga practices need us to be grounded. And if we are not grounded, well, short circuit the system. A lot of people short circuit it. And that is why one has to be grounded. Keep your head high in the sky, but your feet planted firmly on the ground. Terra firma. Namaste, Dhanyavadaha. Thank you so much for being with me. Let us all grow together and glow together in yoga. Hari Om Tat Sat.